It's a massive oil pipeline that would cut the U.S. in two from north to south, carrying 830,000 barrels a day from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico and create 5,000 construction jobs. But there are some major environmental concerns about what's called the Keystone pipeline, and the State Department has been studying those concerns for a year. Now its report is out saying, and I'm quoting now, the analyses of potential impacts associated with construction and normal operation of the proposed project suggest that there would be no significant impacts to most resources along the proposed project route. Let's get some more now from CNN contributor Van Jones, a former special advisor on these kinds of issues to President Obama. Van, thanks very much for coming in. The report suggests, at least the summary from the State Department, that the pipeline won't be harmful. It sets the stage for potentially the president to approve this. What's your reaction?
This is a shockwave going through the environmental community right now, the scientific community right now. There are still a few more steps along the way here. There's going to be a 45-day period for people to respond to this. But this is a shocker. First of all, it shoves the president in the direction of approving a pipeline. If this thing is approved, you're talking about tar sand, not oil, tar sand coming from Canada across the United States. We already had a tar sand spill in Michigan 4 years ago. They have spent almost $1 billion trying to clean that mess up. They can't clean it up. Tar sand is the most corrosive, nasty fuel on the earth. You're going to have a pipeline coming down to do that. Worse than that, though, this causes the president's environmental base to go nuts. He just gave this beautiful speech about climate and how we're not going to let the earth get cooked. And the first thing that comes out of the State Department is we're going full speed ahead on tar sands. This is a big deal.
Well, explain real quick the tar sands and why that's such a concern.
This is not normal oil. First of all, tar sand is about 20% dirtier when it comes to climate change and climate impacts, but it's worse than that. When tar is very corrosive, they have spills all the time in Canada. You might ask the question, why don't they just pipe it out of Canada as opposed to piping through the U.S.? Nobody in Canada wants this stuff because they've seen spill after spill after spill. It's corrosive. It leaks. When it hits the water, you don't know how to clean it up. It's not like normal oil. So this is the dirtiest, most dangerous fuel. There's a myth that has been perpetuated that the State Department has bought into, says Canada's going to develop it anyway. We may as well go ahead and do it ourselves.
Well, let me ask you, Van. I mean, clearly you've not been a fan of this project, really from the beginning. I mean, you have been very outspoken about it. But if the president comes out in support of the pipeline project and he says it should move forward, and you see these reports that said there would be no significant impact on the environment, would that convince you? Would you support the president?
Well, I wouldn't, but I'll tell you why. The only thing that the proponents of this pipeline agree on and the opponents agree on is that the pipeline is a big deal. It would dramatically accelerate tar sands development. That's the only thing we both agree on. This report says, it actually won't accelerate things at all. That's not true. And so I think what you've got now, you're going to have a 45-day period. You're going to see tremendous opposition from the environmental community. The State Department has a chance to correct this over 45 days. Then they've got to make another determination whether or not this is in the national security of the U.S. I think there again, there's a myth that says this oil is going to come to the United States, give us a lot more oil here. That's a myth. It's going through the United States to China. We won't get a drop of it. Right. So we risk our water, risk our farmland, and get no oil. Bad deal for America.
Well, a lot of people think it's a very good deal for America, Van, including the Speaker of the House of Representatives, among others. He just issued a statement. This is John Boehner. Today's report again makes clear there is no reason for this critical pipeline to be blocked one more day. After 4 years of needless delays, it is time for President Obama to stand up for middle-class jobs and energy security and approve the Keystone pipeline. Thousands and thousands of well-paid construction jobs. It would help the United States become more energy independent, if you will, less dependent on oil from the Middle East, shall we say, other places. A lot of people think your concerns are way, way overblown.
Well, there are two myths here, and I think it's important. At first, they said there's going to be 100,000 to 500,000 jobs. That's a lot of jobs to say no to. This report now says something like 3,900 temporary jobs. That's interesting. Then they say this is going to help America with our energy independence. But it turns out the pipeline takes it through America, not to America, and then sends it to China. So it's helping.
It doesn't necessarily have to go to China. It can stay right here in the United States. There's no mandate that it has to go to China. They could sell it to distributors in the United States.
Well, then why bring it all the way down to the Gulf Coast where
because they could also sell it. They could also sell it overseas, and it could be a huge net profit for the United States in terms of creating jobs by increasing exports. In this particular case, of oil.
This is a foreign corporation. This is not an American company. This is a Canadian foreign company that's going to actually take land from American farmers and then send the dirtiest form of energy through America overseas. But here's the deal. This is now going to be game on for the president. The president's going to have to make a decision now. On the one hand, there are these arguments that are proving to be inflated about job creation. There's not 100,000 jobs, not 200,000. His State Department says less than 5,000 temporary jobs. But more importantly, what happens if you've got the Obama pipeline? Now it's the Obama pipeline, and it leaks. His legacy could be the worst oil disaster in American farmland history. He's got to make a tough choice. Tough choice for the president.
But, Van, that is a lot of ifs. I mean, you're saying if this happens and if this happens. But I do have a question about the president and his policies. I mean, you heard the president during his inauguration, and he made a very big deal and a very strong statement about climate change during his speech. I mean, if he backs this pipeline, do you think this undermines his argument?
I think listen, that speech brought tears to my eyes, a lot of people's eyes, people around the world. If after he gave that speech for his inauguration, the first thing he does is approve a pipeline bringing tar sands through America that, frankly, they leak all the time in Canada. There's no reason they're not going to leak here. The first thing that pipeline runs over is the credibility of the president on his climate policy. What is the go-forward strategy on climate now? You may have a situation, it's hard to tell. Has the administration made a decision? They're going to give the right rhetoric to the environmentalists, but the desired results to big oil, big polluters. If so, this president is trying to straddle something that may prove a very, very difficult thing for him in 2014.
Because the alternative, what a lot of experts say, is the Canadians, as you know, you don't believe this, but they're going to build that pipeline to the Pacific, sell the oil to China and other customers out there. The U.S. gets nothing out of it, gets no energy independence, gets no jobs, gets no money in the process. You're willing to take that chance?
Well, here's the thing. If they could do that now, they would do it. The people in Canada, here's what's not being reported on. The people in Canada are up in arms. They have stopped development to the east. They've stopped development to the west. The tar sands either stay in the ground or they come through America. Otherwise, they wouldn't be spending more than $1 billion to bring it through and millions of dollars lobbying. This is key for tar sands development. And the climate scientists have said, and this is not Van Jones, this is climate scientists, they say if we develop these tar sands, there's so much carbon pollution there, it'll be game over for climate. It's like lighting the fuse on a carbon bomb. So it's very important that we take this seriously.
One final question, Van, before I let
our climate.
Do you know how many oil pipelines there already are throughout the United States right now? How many thousands of miles of oil pipelines there are? This would just be an additional oil pipeline.
Carrying tar sand, the most corrosive, acidic form.
But
we know how to deal with oil
aren't there a lot of oil pipelines carrying exactly the same kind of oil already in existence all over the United States?
No, in fact, there's not. And the one that we had in Michigan, in Kalamazoo, leaked, and we spent almost $1 billion in 4 years, and we still haven't cleaned it up.
All right. So you
that's a fact.
You might be, Van, and I know you support the president, you work for the president, but in the coming weeks, maybe months, you might be deeply disappointed if he goes forward. That's what I hear you saying.
This is why you have presidents, so you don't have bureaucrats doing dumb stuff. Presidents should step up and lead. The Obama tar sands pipeline should not be the legacy of a president that gave that speech.
Van Jones got strong views on this subject. Let's see what happens. I suspect the president may make a different decision than Van Jones has in mind. That's just my suspicion, but we shall see. Thanks, Van.
We'll see. Thank you, Wolf.
I'll tell you, statement after statement was popping into my email inbox as soon as that draft report came out that Dan Lothian was talking about. Republicans very excited and saying this is no longer a political football and it shouldn't be as it has been. And they say it's a no-brainer. It should go ahead. Clearly passions on either side.
Obviously.
Yeah.